Warm welcome to this special episode of ETGovernment's World Trade Leadership Series. My name is Anoop Verma. Today our guest for this special episode is Scott Wang. He is the Vice President, Asia Pacific at World Trade Centers Association, WTCA. WTCA is a body that works for enhancing the trade and investment opportunities for commercial property developers, economic development agencies, and international businesses. It helps businesses to connect globally and prosper locally. Scott Wang is leading the WTCA's efforts in the Asia Pacific region. Welcome, Mr. Scott Wang.
Thank you so much, Anoop, and I'm so glad to be with you for this program.
My first question is, what is the nature and the scope of the work that WTCA is doing in Asia Pacific region in particular? You are a global agency, but I would like to focus on the Asia Pacific region to enable businesses to connect with each other and prosper.
First of all, just a little bit about this organization. We're a major global network of integrated international trade facilities and services. We covers more than 300 major cities and trade hubs in 92 countries around the globe. And in each of the city, the WTC has a presence. We provide both facility and services for local business community, and we do have a lot of platforms and tools and events and programs to connect all the city together, to connect all the business community served by our WTC together. So in that sense, we are very, very global. In Asia Pacific, the region has been growing very, very fast. Right now, we have about 97 World Trade Centers in this region. So roughly about 1/3 of the global network, and we also the fastest growing regional network in the past decade, which is very much a reflection of their growth of trade and investment in Asia Pacific region. We're actually leading the world for that part. We are making the biggest contribution to the global international trade and investment development. And moving forward, we're very, very optimistic about the continuous growth in Asia Pacific, in particular India. The India network for us right now is very, very phenomenal, put it this way. It was this one of I personally, I feel I came to India 12 years ago, and I have the privilege to observe the tremendous transformation of India economy, the infrastructure, technology, and the life quality of people. So we're very happy. We look forward to future continuous contribution to India's development and also to their development in Asia Pacific.
How do you see India's business relationship with other nations in the Asia Pacific region? And what steps can the government take to further grow India's business relationship in this region?
Well, in Asia Pacific region, if you 5 or 10 years ago, if you talk about international trade, people would think about East Asia. For example, you start from Japan, South Korea, and then you have China. And the India economy in history was a little bit more domestic oriented. This in terms of the ratio of GDP contribution, but more and more you see that we are in the middle of a tremendous transformation or restructuring of a global value chain or global supply chain, and India is very, very well positioned in that part. So if you look at some of the major initiative in India, for example, Making India, smart city mission, all these things, that really these things put India very much in the landscape of international trade and investment. So India is accelerating in terms of development of international trade and investment.
The government of India has been striving to attract foreign investments in the country from large corporations with the idea of driving the local economy and creating jobs. Till now, much of the electronics, we are one of the biggest importers of electronics items from China, South Korea, and other countries in the region. Now, the government's focus is that we should start manufacturing over here, and they have also achieved some success. So, what else can the government do to attract investments and encourage exports of electronics from India?
I think for where you mentioned that India government initiative and policy try to get some of the major companies, foreign company, to invest in India. This is really a very very good move. But I do think that we also wanted to look at small and medium sized companies. Because if you look at the major global multinational companies, they always work with a great number of supply chain players, their partners, and most of them are actually small and medium-sized company. So we think that we would suggest the India government to focus on in bigger company, but at the same time do not lose sight of these small and medium-sized companies. These are very very important for the supply chain. And the second thing I think that for India to really try to become sustainable especially in the manufacturing drive, India will probably wanted to not just attract a foreign company, but at the same time adopt initiative and policies to encourage the development of domestic companies as in the supply chain, because this is probably good for India to move forward in the security and resilience of supply chain. And of course, for all the companies, this one of the area that a company really is the priority for them is basically their business environment. It's what is the labor policy, for example, what is the talent pool, what is the taxation policy, how there, and of course, if in terms of international trade and investment, it's also the tariff, and how to just make the goods movements and people movements easier and more convenient.
You earlier talked about the infrastructure transformation that you have seen in India in the last 12 years. So the government of India has a major focus on building smart cities. Some of the smart cities have already been built, but a lot of more work has to be done in that area. In 2023, the budget for the smart city mission was around rupees 16,000 crore. So my question is, what kind of investment should India make in creating business and trade infrastructure for sustaining rapid growth of Indian industry, other than this smart city mission that we are already doing?
Well, the smart city mission that the India government has been investing and focusing on, of course, we have seen some of the very significant progress made in that aspect. There are a lot of things to do to be done. For example, how to really that in terms of the information infrastructure. In terms of transportation in infrastructure, what in terms of the solution that are needed for smart city, how we can really standardize things and reduce cost and increase interoperability. So the development can be more even, put it this way, across different regions. There also, as I mentioned, the India government put quite some efforts in their Make in India kind of initiative, especially in some of the industry like electronics. We see a lot of progress. You see that major companies like Apple, they announced that India production will be increased by 3 or 4 times in next 5 to 10 years. And then if Apple do that, then the supply chain player, they have to come here. So you will see that the development of the whole industry in India, and it's not just the electronics thing. And India do have some of the traditional strengths in other area, for example, IT service. That you see that this trend that because of the development of information technology and infrastructure, it's getting a lot easier today to have subcontracting of IT service need and in India, which India has a core strength.
One of the major focus of the government is on developing the electronics industry in the country, electronics manufacturing. So this smart city mission that they are creating, that is supposed to create infrastructure which will be attractive for the electronics manufacturers of the world. So what kind of investments should we make, or strategies, infrastructure strategies we should develop in order to be able to attract the best electronics firms in the country?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. A lot of times we were talking about smart cities. We were talking about, for example, the IT solution for to manage the city, to connect the city. We're talking about transportation network infrastructure to provide the convenience for distribution of goods and for people to travel. But sometimes, people do not mention one of the very important dimension, which is really something that we think that we can bring to the table, which I always call it a business infrastructure. Because what really the transportation do? It connect people, right? What really the telecommunication infrastructure do? It really connect people. But you also need to have a business connection, right? This is something that we really bring to the table, not just across India, but also a link with a global business community, right? So that means great visibility for any of the major any of the smart city or the India region, which also means additional business opportunity because the connectivity will bring people there, which also means that their convenience of doing business, because the more the business infrastructure is in place, the better that people feel like they have good chance to get things done there. And it's not just for electronics business industry. I think these are kind of common needs and common benefits we can bring to the industries across the board.
One of the problems that our cities face, even in cities like Bangalore or Hyderabad, which are doing very well as software and electronics hubs, is that they are overcrowded. Transportation takes too long for going from one spot to another. So high speed and reliable public transportation is a major factor that can make a city livable and economically fruitful. So what kind of transportation solutions would be more suited for smart cities, which will serve as a hub for electronics manufacturing, for software, and for other industries?
I'm not an expert in transportation, but I certainly feel the pain that you talked about, because I travel to Bangalore, I travel to Hyderabad, I travel to Mumbai, all these cities a lot, right? And then I sometimes I would feel, oh, you know what? If there is a better, if the transportation infrastructure can be improved, that would be fantastic, right? So, but you see some of progress already. In Bangalore, you see the metro system is getting place. In Mumbai, you also see that, and I think it will be difficult to in major cities, Bangalore, Mumbai, Hyderabad, it probably a little bit difficult to do things above the ground. So you do need to think about some metro system, subway thing. that can effectively connect people at the same time, have this affordability for people to leverage. And I do see, for example, today, if I, 10 years ago, if I travel to Singapore, most of the stuff there, transportation is above the ground, on the ground. But today, if you travel to Singapore, it's so easy. Everything, you go underground, you go subway, it's so easy.
So what kind of collaborations can India have with other countries in Asia Pacific for developing smart cities and other infrastructure? Like we gave the example of Singapore, where all the transportation has moved underground. So can we learn for something from there, and from what kind of collaborations are possible between various nations?
I do think India has a tremendous relationship with Singapore, tremendous relationship with other regions, like, for example, Japan, and Southeast Asia countries. They're probably, especially places like Singapore, they're very much in position to provide necessary technology, and then maybe also investment for the deployment of the system in India. But at the same time, I would say, of course, you see some of the leading example, like, for example, in transportation. I mentioned Singapore, Japan, and probably also China. But the thing is that most of the Asia Pacific region, for example, Southeast Asia, I traveled a lot. You go to Jakarta, you go to Ho Chi Minh City, you go to even Manila. You have similar issue. So it's not like something that is India unique. The problem, the issue is you see the good side and the bad side. We're talking about bad side. The good side is that this is actually the indication of progress and growth because of demand, right? You see the surge in demand there, and then it's always easier when you see the demand is there, and then you try to find the solution and supply to get it resolved. If you do not have demand, then that will be very dangerous. So I'm kind of optimistic that we do not really know like what exactly is the technology provider or which country that India will eventually work and try to get help. But I'm pretty much sure that after 5 or 10 years, you will see very different situation.
The government of India has a very ambitious economic target for economic growth. By 2025, we are expecting a $5 trillion economy. By 27-28, we are expecting 10 trillion, and beyond that, further growth is expected. So, from your perspective, from the WTCA perspective, what kind of growth are you expecting or estimating by 2030?
This is also a very good question because it's always a little bit risky to talk about future, right? But with India, I do think that right now India is the fastest growing major economy in the world. It's around 8% kind of growth rate, which is very, very impressive. If you think about the pandemic and then actually across the globe, you see very, very slow recovery, right? But India took the lead on that and make, of course, a lot of contribution, not just to India, but also to the development of a global economy, right? So I'm quite optimistic that India will keep the growth rate, continue the pace. At the same time, that because everybody India. When I travel to India, I heard a lot of discussion about sustainability, about ESG, these type of initiative. So I do feel India, when you move forward with the quantity, this number growth rate, but at the same time, I see that India will also improve the quality of development.
Thank you, Mr. Scott Wang. Very nice talking to you and having your perspective on the infrastructure front, on smart cities and other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.